My name is Kristina Richardson, and when I think about who I am as a practitioner, scholar in training, my first thought is my position. I'm a white female that's 42 years old, and I've been married to my husband for 23 years. We have two daughters who are 19 and 20 years old. I was raised by both of my parents and have a great amount of respect for them as lifelong learners. As a child, I struggled with reading comprehension and memory. My mother was my encourager and tutor throughout my formative years of school. My parents and former teachers most influenced my decision to become a special education teacher. And I've been an educator for 21 years and currently serve as a special education coordinator at a high school. As a practitioner, scholar in training, these subjectivities influence my approach to learning and practice. I have to balance my time between the multiple roles I have as a mother, wife, sister, and daughter. I have family obligations and responsibilities. I want to set an example for my daughters as a female practitioner scholar. As an educator and leader, I want to be a professional expert that others in my field can depend on. My strong work ethic and desire to be a lifelong learner are not always viewed in the same respect that I value. Because I was a struggling learner as a child, I'm passionate about learning and being an expert in the field of education. My subjectivities have helped me develop a focused approach to being a practitioner scholar in training and crafted my viewpoint towards research and scholarship. I see the ripple effect practitioner scholars can have in the field of education. I realize that my research could have influences beyond my initial intended focus, and as a practitioner scholar, my circle of influence will grow. Because of my subjectivities, I feel a sense of responsibility as a researcher, student, and practitioner scholar in training. When I consider the influences of Peshkin's subjective eyes towards my approach to becoming a practitioner scholar, I consider how each one can be a strength and weakness in my development. I also look at ways I will account for these and for the impact of these subjectivities as I train to be a practitioner scholar. Of Peshkin's 6 subjective eyes, the ones that I relate to the most as a practitioner scholar in training are the ethnic maintenance eye, the e pluribus unum eye, the justice-seeking eye, and the pedagogical Millerist eye. I find myself as a white educator and student in need of understanding how different ethnicities have different perceptions of each other. There's a strength in diversity because we have opportunities to learn from each other. To account for these differences through the lens of the ethnic maintenance eye, I need to look for paths to build trust, for open communication, to discuss our differences. In the e pluribus unum eye, that's an area that I need to be mindful of during my training. As a student and practitioner, I have to be careful to not assume unity and collaboration. I should be mindful to observe closely and not allow my desire for collaboration to cloud my judgment. I can account for this through reflection and follow-up with others. With justice-seeking eye, several subjectivities seem to fall under this same one for me. As a practitioner scholar in training, I need to be mindful that as a student and practitioner, I need to keep an open mind and not allow my judgments to be swayed by becoming defensive about areas that I am very passionate about. I can use this subjectivity to narrow my focus, but remain mindful of the areas my judgment could be influenced. The pedagogical Millerist eye seems to strike an important chord with me as a special education teacher and leader. I have to remember my role as a practitioner scholar in training is to not judge the teacher's abilities to educate, but rather to grow as a researcher, to contribute to the field of education as an expert in school improvement as a practitioner scholar later. In my studies of subjectivities, I developed 6 more labels from my personal subjectivities. However, as I narrowed my focus to my relationship of my subjectivities as a scholar, practitioner, and training, I found most connected to the what I call learning abilities I and the maternal responsibilities I. Because I was a struggling learner as a child, I learned strategies to overcome my struggles with learning. As a practitioner, scholar, and training, I need to be mindful that growth is not always measured through quantitative data and that learning is a process that takes time. I often find strength as a student and practitioner in my ability to focus, but need to be mindful of other ways to measure success and growth. The maternal responsibility I has shaped my decisions to pursue advanced degrees and my career choices. As a student, I was encouraged by my mother to be a lifelong learner and am setting that same example for my daughters. As a practitioner, I seem to have always filled a role as a maternal figure for the students that I work with and the teachers that I work with. And I need to be mindful as I grow into a practitioner scholar that there are times that I need to account for these relationships, to explain the influences in my decisions. As I develop into an expert educator, I'm keeping a journal of these influences from my subjectivities that have, influenced me along the way through this journey. As I consider areas that I want to research, I keep these subjectivities in mind. An area of interest for research for me is teacher development. I'm interested in learning more about using a scaling for excellence model to empower teachers as instructional experts in the classroom. My subjectivities influence my interest in this area of research, and I develop a sense of responsibility as a practitioner, scholar, in training. I realize my learning abilities is a guiding subjectivity in my interest in teacher development. Since learning was difficult for me at an early age, I see the influence educators have in the lives of students. I have to ensure my justice-seeking eye does not cloud my judgment when researching teacher development, and I want to ensure that I'm not defensive about my analysis of the data if the research reveals teachers' weaknesses. In the same respect, I have to keep in mind the pedagogical Millerist eye when observing teachers in training. I want to ensure I have the trust of the teachers, and I want to make sure that I keep all other subjectivities that could distort my analysis in mind.